We can't play everything.
We wish we could.
We really wish we could, but sometimes we get to games a couple years late. Get off us.
That's right, we're doing aggressive intros now. I'm Mike.
I'm Nick.
We're the brothers Murph, and these are the 10 games that we discovered in 2022, but they are not from 2022.
No, they're not. They're from 2020 or before. They're also not from 2021 because we just did a list talking about games in 2021.
Check that list out.
But 2020 or before, these are games that we tried for the first time this year that are from 2020 or before. Some are from 2020, but some are not new games at all.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like something that's not on this list, but like I played El Grande for the first time.
Yeah.
The OG area control game. I was kind of like, oh, okay, cool. Like,
Yeah. There's so many games that are like that you know, you get to late classics or just games that were from 5-6 years ago. It's one of my favorite things to do is, as well as chase the hotness of the new stuff, is to just like discover some of the great games that came before. So that's what we're doing today.
And there were more than 10. We will have a second top 10 of this over on our Patreon right in the new year here, talking about 10 more games that we discovered in 2022. Yeah. So make sure to become a patron today if you want to check out that list, along with other supplemental top 10s that we do for pretty much all of our lists. For the most
Absolutely.
part. Yeah.
So let's hop right into top 10 gaming discoveries from 2022.
New to us.
Number 10 is a game called King of 12. This is a game, it's kind of like a simultaneous selection game where you are all selecting a little action character card and hoping to reveal. And ultimately, most of the time, you want to be the person who has the highest value die to be able to kind of win the turn, and you want to kind of win 2 rounds in order to win the game.
Pretty much, yeah.
What really is fun about this, you have a D12 that everyone's going to roll to start the round. Now, you may roll high, you may roll low. Typically, you want to have a high number.
Usually.
Then all of these cards will mitigate this. You might play like a golem, for example, and then whatever number you have on your die, instead it's considered a 12.
Yeah.
That's not much higher than a 1 that you rolled, so you might have a...
add 7 to your die.
Add 7. There's also things that subtract from your score, and it's all about playing those mind games with each other because there are like a night card where now the lowest die will score. You have a 3, I have a 6. And I'm like, you know what? I'll bet you this guy's going to go for the low right now. So I'm going to play that -7, so I actually have a lower number than you think. And so it's all about trying to anticipate. And if ever 2 or more people all flip over the same card, those cards knock each other out. Their powers are not counted. If ever you're trying to determine who has the highest value, if anyone has the same value, those numbers are discounted. And then the next highest that does not repeat is the winner and things like that. So it's that perfect kind of simultaneous selection. What are they going to play?
Yeah.
What have they played? A bit of that memory element.
We all have the same card. So if Mike has already played the knight, I know he doesn't have that card.
So I know it's
but
safe.
Mary might still have the card. So you're like, oh, is Mary going to do it right now?
Yeah.
Or should I do it?
Should
You're
I
like,
go
I'm
for
going
it?
to play the knight because I only have a 1. And then we both play the knight. And you're like, no, because now it's back to being the highest again. And it's so much fun. Just that meta game and getting into it. And the games are quick. And so you kind of play another round and you immediately start getting the meta game again of like last game. And there are a bunch of different cards. But then on top of that, you play with like 5 or 6 cards that are in the game. But then you can switch those out. So there's other powers in the game that you can have where you might be able to like flip your die over to its other side and all this different kind of stuff. It's really, really fun. A really like surprise hit for us where we were both like, oh, this will probably be pretty cool. And then it ended up being an absolute blast. We really liked King of 12.
Yeah, it's really awesome. I highly recommend if you like those types of games where you're trying to outguess your opponent and be clever. That's King of 12, our number 10.
Indeed. Let's get to number 9. Number 9 is a very new game called No Thanks. And by that, I mean it's very old.
It's a classic.
It is a classic. This is a classic like anti-bidding game where you do not want cards. You do not want points. You want nothing. So the game is all about being like, no thanks, I'm cool. And you have these kind of chips, which will be essentially like negative points, right?
The chips are going to help you against your point. If you collect cards, those are negative points.
That's what I meant to say. Yes, exactly.
No, they are negative points, which is what you want. So
exactly.
Yes.
So because
they're positive for you to have, but they are negative points.
When it comes around to you and there's like a 30 out there, that's very bad. You do not want a 30. You might be like, no thanks, but you have to put one of your chips on it. And so eventually it gets to the point where it keeps going around, keeps going. Everyone's like, okay, here's the thing. There's a 20 out there, but there's like 10 chips. Maybe I can take that
basically
because you then get all those chips as well. Because on top of that, if you ever get to the point where it comes back to you and you don't have any chips, you have to take it.
Right.
So there's this resource management that goes into No Thanks, where it's not just about trying to not take points, you also have to manage your chips pretty well. So you're always hiding, being like, oh, does Mike have any more chips? I'm not sure if he does. Let me say no thanks, and let me see if we can get back around to me one more time. And but then on top of that, there's a stacking mechanism where is if you have like 18 and then you get 17, you get to put it on top of the 18, and now that 18 essentially doesn't exist. Your thing's only 17.
Yeah, so you can possibly get a run of cards that will drastically lower.
Which is what Mike did. Mike crushed all of us. And so it's one of those things where sometimes you're like, I'll take this one because I have a 26 and this is a 25. So now
my score got better.
My score just got better. And there's all these little mind games going on, and it's a classic for a reason. No Thanks was really fun.
Super fun, super simple. Yeah, it's just like, I love it. It's just like classic like anti-bidding games. Like, no, I don't want that. I'm good.
No thanks.
It's really fun. That's our number 9, No Thanks. I'm like, and one of these ones I'm like genuinely like, we've heard about this game forever. We played it and like, man, it really does deserve its place in everyone's hearts.
Yeah, it sure
it's
does.
Great.
Yeah, No Thanks is great. It's a
Say
number
yes
9.
thanks to no thanks. That's what you should do.
Boom, nailed it. Let's get number 8.
Number 8 is a game called Stockpile. It's a game that we've been wanting to cross off the list
for years.
For a
Shouts
long
out to
time.
Howie. Howie finally got it played.
Howie got
and
us
Board Game
across
Dave.
the
Follow
finish
Board
line.
Game Dave, by the way.
Do follow Board Game Dave. So Stockpile is a game where you have a bunch of different companies, and we're all acquiring and selling stocks in these companies based on the value. Hopefully, you want to buy maybe while these things are low, but you ultimately want to sell them when they're worth quite a lot.
Trying
to get that money. What's really fun about this game is that you're going to get some insider info. Because every round, certain companies are going to go up in value. The stocks will be more value, and some are going to get devalued a little bit. And you're going to all have you'll have information on one of the companies. And I'm like, man, American Automotive is going to tank.
They're going to tank. I know this.
So before this gets revealed, I might try to sell some stocks real quick because I have some money in there and I don't want to lose all my cash or God forbid it goes bankrupt and lose my stocks and get nothing for them, which is what happened to me. And you might have some information about a stock's going to go up, so you might want to try to acquire it. So once you get this kind of information, you get some cards, and you're going to ultimately play them into these various areas of the board.
6 piles, am I right?
Yeah, 6 piles. One will go face up, so it's a stock or an action card potentially, or something that might cost people money. And one thing face down, just a little bit of hidden information, a little bit of open information. Then we ultimately bid on a stack of cards. Like I want this stack or I want that stack. They may give you action cards, which might bump or tank the stocks of something before the kind of grand reveal at the end of the round. Then, of course, you can sell some stocks for money. And so it's that question of like, what stocks do I hang on to the hope that they go up in value and sell them later for the most cash possible? Which ones do I kind of ditch before things go really south?
But there's also a whole secondary game where you're watching everyone. So if I see Mike being like, I'm going to get rid of all of this American. Why are you getting rid of so much? Is it about to tank? Does Mike know that it's about to tank?
Holy crap, I get rid of my stocks?
Should I get rid of my stocks too? So you're also watching everyone being like, okay.
Yeah.
And then when you're putting a card face up and face down, you're putting one face down being like, please don't take that stack. That's the card I actually want. And so there's
or to put something face down to make it seem valuable, but it's just this thing that costs you extra money to take, you know?
There's all these other mind games going on with it, and it's really, really fun.
It was a really good time. I did not do particularly well. I got into computers tanked. I got into cars tanked. It was bad. I should have gone steel and electric. I should have known.
Yeah.
But it's really fun, and we played with just a little bit of the expansion material, which... it was kind of a bear market situation where you'd roll dice, and that made things even just kind of a little bit more dynamic and everything, which I really liked.
The stocks weren't all equal. In the normal game, all the stocks are like, they have the exact same.
You can flip to the other side, the kind of advanced side, which is just much more interesting because not every company is the same.
Yeah, really fun though. A game that I would love to pick up at some point. Really, really great stock game.
Great for like 4 or 5 people. You kind of want to have a lot of people in on the action.
Yeah, it was a really good time. We played at PAX and Pug. Shout out to Howie for showing it to us because it was a really, really good time. Yeah. Stockpile finally got it played after years and years and years of hearing about it. It's our number 8. Turns out it's pretty good. That's awesome. Let's get number 7. Number 7 was introduced to us by our good friend Nate, and then I immediately went and told Mike, you need to play this game next time we're hanging out with Nate.
I played it with Nate. And I was like, Nick, you were right. I should have played that game. You're right.
Indeed. This is Russian Railroads. Russian Railroads is a bit of a worker placement, but kind of like an engine building game on steroids. And it sounds like it's
engine building literally because you're building trains.
You are. And it sounds like a big train game like Railways of the World, but it's really, really not. It's just an engine building game where you have these different tracks, and you can put like locomotives on the tracks, of course, because it's trains, and you're putting down these different kind of levels of tracks.
Yeah, you're kind of throughout the game moving down these different tracks. It's all kind of abstract. You're moving down these different tracks, which will allow you to then kind of sell coal and more valuable materials. But you have to kind of develop the tracks to essentially the way I look at it, to carry those materials.
Exactly.
So your coal is always the first thing to go. You have to get that way down the line because these more valuable resources can never surpass the less valuable ones.
No, they can't.
So if you want silver or something way valuable, you got to move all the other stuff forward.
Exactly.
But then if you start getting the ability to generate that, they're worth a lot more points than coal will ever be.
And it's one of those things where you have multiple different tracks, so you're trying to decide, like, do you
invest in one heavily?
Do you
do
do one
mix
heavily
them?
where you're really trying to go, everything can go on this one track, have really strong locomotives, or do you space them all out? And then there's some like special abilities you can get by getting like conductors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was really, really fun. Unfortunately, Russian Railroads is like super unavailable.
Now, Ultimate Railroads is available, but it's also because it has all the various expansions and stuff, it's quite expensive.
Yeah.
But we really do enjoy the game, so I'm like, someday
it's
we'll
one of those
find a
things where
sale.
I'm like, I don't know if I want to pay $100 for it, but I did really, really like it. And it was one of those games where like right after I played it, I was like, wow, I really want to play that again. And I was telling Mike the whole time, I was like, man, I think you're really, really gonna like this. And
it's just fun to go from the first round. Like I scored 8 points. In the last round, you're like, I scored 97 points. You're
because you are again building up your engine, and your kind of railways get so much better and stuff. At first, you're kind of like, I didn't really do much. It's like you'll do a lot.
You're fine.
Don't worry
about it. You'll get there.
Russian Railroads was super, super cool. Super excited to try it. Maybe someday we'll get Ultimate Railroad, especially when we find it on sale somewhere. I mean, that's talking about something that's going to come up later. We finally found it on sale, and we're like, great, now we can get this. And so maybe we'll do that with Ultimate Railroads at some point. Russian Railroads number 7, really, really fun game. Shouts out to Nate for showing it to us. And let's go on to number 6.
Number 6 is a really simple kind of pure hand management game where you want to have the most valuable hand possible. This is Fantasy Realms.
I know, finally got this one played.
I know.
Somehow we never played it.
Like, I always see on the box, like in Barnes & Noble, it's like a 3+ player game. It's like, never mind. But I've always been intrigued by it. We played Red Rising, which is based on Fantasy Realms. This is a game where you have just a bunch of fantastical creatures and kind of suits of cards, for example, like weather and things, or leaders and on and on.
Yeah, just all sorts of stuff.
And you're going to ultimately assemble a hand of 7 cards. And you want the most synergistic hand possible. And a lot of cards are like, I had in my game a bunch of flood cards that I collected. And it's like, okay, well, you don't really want to have like land cards and stuff. So those are like penalties you can get.
Yeah.
But you can have like a lightning card or something with a flood. So I was trying to pair together certain things. Sometimes you want a specifically named card, a specific type of card.
The cards will say like,
it might give you bonuses or penalties.
Yeah, it'll be like for this is like a hunter. So it's like for every beast card you have, this hunter is worth like
Plus
10 points or something like that. And so you're trying to get a hand of cards that's really, you don't want like one outlier card that's worth like 5 points.
Yeah, you want everything to feed into everything else.
Yeah, and you're essentially drawing cards off the deck, and then you can discard down to the table, and you can also draw from the table because they're face-up cards. So Mike, at one point, Mike put down a card, and I was like, ooh, that's like really, really good for me. So I'm going to grab that card. And the game will time out based off how many cards were discarded down to the table.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just simple and great.
Super fun, super fast, very much a filler game, but it was just really fun to be able to like have this hand getting more and more powerful, and you start doing like this little math, and you're like, I think this is pretty good, you know. And then you try to time out the game really quickly because you feel like you have a stronger hand than anyone else.
And there's always that like, oh man, do I ditch this card or do I try to make this card worth it?
Yeah.
And there is that kind of push your luck where you're like, you need like it's right
Maybe
now.
if I
It's
draw
worth,
from the deck, I'll get that card. You're like,
yeah. It's like,
maybe.
this card is worth nothing, but you need these 2 other things, and then the card's worth like 50 points, and you're like, I have one of them. Gosh, do I think I can get the other one? Because if you don't, then it's not worth that much. And so it's a fun little push your luck element too.
Yeah.
To where you're kind of like, do I just ditch it? Do I just ditch it? And
praying for the right card at the right time. Yeah. It was really fun. Again, it doesn't do too much to get out of its own way. I'm really interested in Marvel Remix, which is just a Marvel themed version of this, because I'm like, then we'll have more tie-in to like, oh, I know Spider-Man and Thor and stuff like that. The Fantasy Realm was just kind of generic fantasy, which was fine.
Yeah, it was fine.
But it got me really excited for something like the Marvel. It's like, ooh,
that was cool.
You know. So that is Fantasy Realms number 6.
Yeah.
Really fun. Let's get to number 5.
Our number 5 is a version of Carcassonne called Carcassonne Hunters and Gatherers. I'm always very charmed by the various versions of Carcassonne.
There's so many. Yeah, I would happily try any of them.
Yeah, like it's Carcassonne South Seas and all this. I'm always just like, I kind of want them all just because I just think it's cool that there's so many different ones. Yeah. But they're all very Carcassonne, and so is Carcassonne Hunters and Gatherers. In this case, instead of cities, you have forests. Instead of roads, you have rivers. And instead
there's meadows as well. You go hunting.
Exactly. And so it's to me, I actually like this more than base Carcassonne because I just think it's, especially the hunters, which are kind of the equivalent of your farmers to some degree. I just think it's more intuitive where now you put down a hunter and you're going to get points for every animal that's in that kind of area because there's all these animals down the tile, like, gazelle, stuff that hunters and gatherers would be hunting. Right. And so to me, it's just more... other humans there to me it's just more intuitive than I don't like the farmers in Carcassonne is what I'm getting at because to me it's just like it gets confusing to try and figure out. I feel like so often I'm like, okay, cool, I'm crushing this farm area right here, and then I found out there's a little sliver of land and it turns out all of this area over here is still my farm, and it turns out I'm not winning anymore. And the hunters and gatherers just feels a little bit easier. And then there's like a river and there's like fish in the river, and you can actually put down these huts down on the river and you can essentially get fish.
End game scoring,
yeah, from like the river system. So there's also like your roads itself are a little bit more
your roads, or I should say your rivers here, which are like the roads, will be capped with lakes, and normally you'll score for the length of the river than any fish that are in those lakes. But if you throw down a hut, because as you're building out these rivers, you realize we have this like long river system.
Huge river system.
You throw down a hut, you can get fish from the entire system. So everything feels like, it's like what you would get in Carcassonne, but like supercharged a little bit.
Cooler. Yeah,
exactly. But cooler. And then there's like these forests you can close off with like these golds. If you get these like menhir tiles, these like bonus tiles, which you get to place, you get kind of like a second turn. A bunch of stuff like that.
It's
But it's not like wildly different.
No, it's not. But it made certain things kind of more intuitive. Kind of gave it just a nice little twist. I actually really, really enjoyed this one.
Really fun.
Again, if I had this one or just straight up base Carcassonne, I would probably choose this one. It also looks a little nicer, which is nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always like the different Carcassones. I just think, I don't know, I find them very charming. And so like, we really liked Hunters and Gatherers. Shout out to Steve for letting us borrow it.
Appreciate you.
Really, really fun game. That's number 5, and let's get number 4. Speaking of Carcassonne.
Hey, Isle of Skye. Take some Carcassonne, add some bidding, adds a little Alexander Pfister, Viking, Scottish stuff, and that's Isle of Skye.
It is. Carcassonne and Cartographers had a baby.
Yes, it is. Carcassonne and Cartographers blended together.
Yeah.
The Cartographers part you're talking about is that there's these different scoring conditions that will each score a few times in the game. So you're really trying to build out this landscape. And the Carcassonne is you have to make the landscape kind of make sense. You can't have water just running right into land and stuff. You have to connect roads and things. Or rather, you don't have to connect all your roads and all, but you have to like make mountain to mountain, grass to grass and things like that.
That's got to make sense.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of bidding where you'll get a couple tiles and you'll kind of set the price for them. So if someone wants them, they're going to have to pay you for the tile. You can also buy someone else's tile, and anything left over is money you'll lose, but you'll get to keep the tile, because if you set the price at 3, you got to pay it too.
Yeah, you got to pay it.
So there's a little bit of that's involved, and it's all about building out your tableau of these tiles in such a way that's going to score on these 4 scoring conditions as best as possible. They're going to come around a few times, so you kind of want to make sure that, sometimes you'll need a certain type of animal, certain types of buildings, X amount of completed mountainscapes and things like that. And you want to kind of be set up and ready to go. So every time they score, when they score multiple times, it's sort of, you're going to reinvest in that. So if something would give you like 3 points, you get 3 different times. We got 9 points out of that. If you can get to 4 points per, now you're at 12 and stuff. So it's really fun to kind of have like that focus based on the few scoring conditions each game, and try to like make everything make sense, but you're also still beholden to the tiles. How much am I willing to pay you? Because you know what the scoring conditions are. You see what I'm building. You know that I might want your tile. So you set it at a price where I'm like, hey, all right.
Gotta pay for it.
Because you get to keep your money and I gotta pay you. So it's kind of like double cash. You know? Like, so there's a lot of fun, like little intrigue, but it's ultimately a fairly light game. And it's got that same kind of intuition in terms of like what placements are legal based off of kind of like what Carcassonne would give you. So it's easy to understand like how the game works. And then you just get to play around with trying to like maximize everything.
And there's a bunch of different scoring stuff. So like it's always different, which is nice. And I mean, Carcassonne is nice because like just the way the tiles come out make the game different. But this is even more different because now it's like these things
what's
matter.
Valuable and what's not.
Yeah, so now these things kind of don't really matter. Now you want these things next to this or whatever. And so it just makes it more interesting. I really liked it a lot.
I did too. I thought it was really brilliant. We've heard good things about the expansion and stuff. We just have the base game, but we found it like on a sale. I was like, sweet, I've always wanted to try this. Let's go, and I'm happy we do. Yeah, I have it now.
Yeah,
that's Isle of Skye.
That's Isle of Skye number 4. Let's get to number 3. Number 3 was one of the longest Shelf of Shame games that we've had for a very long time.
Well, it's a good thing it wasn't worth it waiting because we hate it.
Turns out we hate the Search for Planet X. Search for Planet X made it through multiple studios. And just kind of kept coming along. And for some reason, we just never played it, even though we kept hearing how good it was.
I kept opening up the box and getting intimidated. I don't even know why. I was like, no, I'm good.
It's not that complicated. This is a deduction game, a competitive deduction game where you are searching for Planet X, shocker.
How good.
And you have this big circular board, and there's these 12 sectors in the normal game, and there's going to be something in each of those sectors, with the exception of 2, which are just truly empty.
Yep.
And then you basically... Everything in this game has rules. So like comets can only be in certain sectors. The dwarf planet can never be next to Planet X.
Yeah.
Gas clouds have to be next to at least one empty area. Asteroids always have to be together. And so then you are asking the app, the game is run by an app, and you are basically looking at different sectors, searching for stuff.
Right.
You'd be like, hey, sector 5 through sector 8, are there any asteroids? And then the app will tell you, yep, there's one asteroid. But here's the thing, you know that asteroids always have to be together, so that one asteroid has to be on either end. Because it only said 1, but there has to be at least 2. Right. So you're like, okay, well then the second asteroid, and so it can't be in this spot because that's in the middle, and I know that now. And so you're like, okay, on your little sheet, you cross off no asteroid there. And you're learning as you go, and then you can put in these kind of like theories.
Yeah, you're sort of positing a theory
exactly
about what you've seen out there, and you can. It's sort of like betting on like where certain elements are, or if maybe you've confirmed, you're like, I know Sector 5 has an asteroid, so I'm gonna try to score some points later when this gets revealed. I will find out that I was true. I was the first one to come up with that.
Because once you put out a theory, eventually it will get revealed, and it'll tell you whether or not that was correct.
Right.
Now, one thing is if you're playing a competitive game, everyone else now goes, oh, there's a comet there. Okay, now I know that. But then if you got there first, you were the one who discovered it first, you will get more points at the end of the game. It is so much fun. I will say, though, I have no interest in playing this game competitively.
Well, I was going to ask for a game of it.
Nope, I'm not going to play it. I really love this game solo. In solo, you play against a bot in the app, so the bot also does not know where Planet X is.
I love
it's
that.
Learning as you do. Yeah. So you are still playing against someone, but you can kind of just play your own pace. I don't have to worry about like the race aspect. I don't have to worry about... Oh my God, am I giving up too much information? I mean, but you are technically playing against someone, but I can just hang out in my apartment, play it with a glass of sherry. I don't know, what do people drink? Sherry?
Sure.
I'm probably drinking a Diet Coke. But nonetheless, I really like Search Planet X.
It's really fun. Again, those seduction games are really satisfying because you will eventually, through information you've gathered from other information getting revealed by other players and such, you will have a cascade moment where you go from like, oh, there's all these possibilities, never mind, it's these couple possibilities.
Yes.
And that moment where things start to come together is just very satisfying every single time.
So I know the asteroid's here. Well, that means the comet has to be here.
And if that's true, then...
And then the gas cloud has to be here. And that means this space has to be an open space because I know this has an asteroid. And it's very satisfying.
I don't even care if you don't win. That feels so good. Give me my cigarette now because I'm satisfied, right? It's so much fun.
Yeah, it's really good.
To all of a sudden have it click in place. You know, it's like seeing...
Yeah, you're seeing the Matrix, yeah.
The Matrix right
now. Yeah, it's really, really good. Search Planet X is really, really fun. We somehow didn't play it for a very long time, a couple years here. But nonetheless, that's number 3, Search Planet X. It's really, really good. Thank you for everyone who bullied us into playing it. It was great.
We appreciate it.
And now let's get on to number 2.
Don't smoke, kids, by the way. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Regardless of how good the game was, don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't smoke.
It's not worth it.
Bad for you. Number 2 is another tile laying game. Guess what, Nick?
What?
We like tile laying.
do.
No way. We like tile laying in Scottish lands, apparently, because it's Glenmore 2 Chronicles.
This is one where we finally found it for like a somewhat reasonable price, because it's a very big game.
It's a chunky game. It's got like 8 modules in it and stuff, so you get a decent amount of content, so I get its price point. But it was always a little more expensive because we hadn't played it. So I'm like, what if it sucks, right?
Yeah.
Thankfully, it does not.
It does not.
This is a tile laying game set in the Scottish Highlands and stuff, and you are... trying to create the kind of most successful little kingdom of tiles. And what's really fun is it has this rondel of tiles that you can select. And on your turn, it's kind of got the patchwork thing where if your meeple is the furthest behind in the rondel that you're moving clockwise around, if you're the furthest behind, that means it's your turn.
It's your turn.
And you can go as far around as you want and take any tile you like. However, if you jump way ahead, it might be a while before you have a turn, but that might be worth it to you to get the right tile.
Sometimes it totally is, yeah.
Yeah, there's a wide range of tiles. There's certain ones that will kind of generate resources, like a forested area will produce wood for you, or farmlands will produce sheep and cattle and such like that. There are other ones that will give you kind of these landscape tiles and people, which allow you to go out, put markers out onto this supplemental board, clan board, I guess. I was trying to think of like, what's Scottish clans? And you can do all these different things. There's a few really interesting things in this game. One, the scoring is about being better than the person who's the worst in a certain category.
That's true.
So one thing you're collecting through the game, of course, is like whiskey. So if I have 5 whiskey and Nick has 2, I have 3 more whiskey, and I'm going to score points based on the difference between us. And there's a little bit of a table. So if you have like 4 or 5 more, it's not just a straight 5 points. You might get like 8 or so, something like that. So you're kind of like trying to dominate in a couple areas over all the other players not over all the other players, specifically of the weakest player. Yeah. And that's just really interesting to me. Yeah. Where it's like, hey, if there's someone that's really struggling, let me try to get off this because I'm just going to capitalize on your not focusing on this area of the game. The other thing that's really cool is at the end of the game, whoever has the biggest area is going to pay several points for it. So you're not trying to have the largest area possible. There's all sorts of modules that you can add, which we have barely scratched the surface on. There's one that immediately adds a boat race. I'll always play with that because it's really fun. You're racing little boats around everyone's different little river. But it's just kind of straight up normal tile placement stuff. Yeah, it's all about the adjacency of your tiles. So when you place down a tile, you get to activate that tile in all potentially 8, I guess, if you somehow place it that way. Every tile that's surrounding it gets to reactivate. So you're going to have tiles to get placed and then reactivate again to generate resources, start turning in resources for points, stuff like that. It's really enjoyable. Good. And with all the modules, there's a lot to explore.
Yeah, and the base game itself would have been enjoyable for a while too. So it's
I'm excited to have the modules just to change up things in the game.
It's really nice. I like Glenmore too. We've heard about it for a while. People keep saying you will like Glenmore.
It's come highly recommended.
You will like it. Play it. We finally found it. We're like, okay, we're just gonna buy it.
Shouts out to Matthew Jude bringing it up, and then I saw it on sale right after, and that was what got me. Is like, you know what? He just mentioned this. Let me get it.
We're gonna do it. Yeah, Glenmore 2 is really cool.
It's really fun.
Really fun. Excited to explore more of the modules and kind of see what's up with it. It's really good. It's our number 2. Glenmore 2 is our number 2.
Hey.
Let's get into our number 1. Number 1 is a game that ended up on both of our top 100 lists, and I feel like it's going to go higher. I honestly think it has the potential to be like a top 10 game for me, and this is La Granja.
Ooh!
La Granja, which is not a new game. So now we played the deluxe version originally because that's
discovered it through the newer version coming, but it's very much the same as the old version.
And we have both played the old version as well at this point. But La Granja it's just the farm. You are farmers and you are working on your farm. But this is a game
kind of upgrading your farm throughout the game. Yep.
It's nuts. You have quad use cards because the people who made this game aren't cowards.
Yeah.
They made quad use cards. So every card, the left side of the card is going to be some kind of farmland, like a vineyard or olive fields or something like that. Grapes. You're putting out vineyards. On the right side of your of the card is going to be some kind of upgrade for your farm, more storage places to put things, some
pigs, get some extra money coming in.
Extra pigs. Everyone wants more extra pigs. The bottom part of the card is a special power you can slot at the bottom of your card that's going to be some kind of farm worker, some kind of person you can put on your farm to help you out, and they're going to give you some kind of special power. And the top card of every card is a contract that you can try and fulfill.
Contract. Turn in all that stuff you're generating now.
Exactly. And you can put that on top, and then you put the stuff that you're generating up in there, and then you can ship it off with your burrows. And you can ship them off to the main board. The main board is going to have a bunch of different like kind of depots that you can put stuff on to unlock stuff. You can also sell stuff directly kind of to the main market, which has a little bit of area control to it. It's just there's a lot going on, and it is so dang good. But so much of it comes down to that card play where you have a card, you're like, man, I really need another olive field. But man, this worker would be really cool. Yeah. But also, I kind of need a pig, and this contract looks nice too. You're just like, it's so hard, so interesting, and man, I'm just like,
to make those decisions.
Oof. And so the original game is the same as the deluxe version. The deluxe version,
it's a lot of aesthetic changes and then adds a bunch of modules. It's kind of doing the Glenmore 2 thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the new version is very cool, but the old version, which you can play on like BJ and stuff like that, is totally fine. It's great, and man, La Granja we immediately played it. We're like, wow, that was really good. And then we played it again and again. I'm so excited to get this game eventually.
It uses kind of like worker placement. There's the dice that you can take use of these certain actions. There's like a little bit of area control in the middle of that market. Exactly. You want to have your presence in there. You can get kind of booted out. You can get these buildings which give you these powers and abilities. Mm-hmm. There's all these things, but it's nicely laid out where each phase is clear. You're going to add a card to your farm. And that's going to be kind of a permanent extension for your farm. And then you're going to move on to here where you're doing the dice stuff. Then you're going to move on to shipping out things. There's ways you can upgrade your grapes into wine. And it's all kind of contained with this now dual layer central, your
You're going
farm,
up
your
the
whole
Fiesta track,
game, really.
and you're doing. It's just like you need to make sure you have enough burrows so that you can actually ship.
You
got
to transport yourself somehow.
And so there's just like so many things to pay attention to. It's just very good Euro game goodness. Yeah. And we're like, oh, this is why it got a deluxe version, because it's really good. Yeah. And the Granja was like, wow, that's good. Holy crap, that's amazing. It was just really, really outstanding, and I liked it a lot.
Yeah, it's really enjoyable. It's one of those, again, we've had this a couple times. Castle of Burgundy was the same thing. Yeah. We had a couple times where you hear about a game for a long time. It's this known classic. Yeah. People love it. And then you finally get to play it, and you're kind of like, A, it's not brand new, so can it be that good?
Nope, trash.
B, can it live up to the hype? Everyone talks so much about it. And then you play it, and you're like, yep, that makes sense. That game is dope. I see exactly why so many people have loved it for all these years now. And we're super excited to get to the deluxe version and all the modules, which you explored just, again, the tiniest bit.
They were really fun.
During the campaign. I'm like, this is a great game, and the new aesthetics and stuff are like, it looks the way you're going to expect it to look, but it's just a little bit fancier, a little bit nicer, a little bit clearer, while being still 100% La Granja, which is awesome. So really cannot wait to play more of it.
Yeah, really, really good game. If you haven't tried it on BJ. It works very well.
Try it.
Really, really outstanding. And that is our list. Those are the top 10 new to us games, games from 2020 or before that we hadn't played, but we played for the first time this year. I really enjoy doing this list because it is always fun playing games that you've heard about, or just like, hey, I have this game, and you're like, oh, cool, sure, let's play it. And you're like, wow, that was really, really good.
Right.
I didn't even know this game existed.
There's more games, like we said, we didn't even get a chance to talk about here, and that's why we're going to do a supplemental list in the new year on our Patreon that'll only be for our patrons. So join our Patreon. We do extra content for a lot of our lists.
Yeah.
We do kind of Q&A things over there as well, so definitely become a patron today. Yeah. Below here, you see all of our current patrons. Thank you to our current patrons and patrons of the past. We really appreciate all the support. Helps us pay for this studio every single day, so let's keep that going so we can keep making awesome content for you. I would
personally like that.
I'd prefer to keep doing this. I don't want to retire yet. I'm a young man.
I'm a young man.
I don't look like it anymore, but I promise I am on the outside, inside, doesn't matter.
Unless that's it for us. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. What are some new to you games? Put them down in the comments below. What's a game you tried from 2020 or before, and you're like, wow, that was actually really, really good? Let us know down in the comments below. Until next time, I'm Nick.
I'm Mike.
We're the Brothers Murph. We'll see you later.
Bye.
The Supreme Padishah Emperor of the known universe, Greg White, is only the Supreme Padishah Emperor of the known universe because Greg White has not thought of the next universe to know. That's how powerful the Supreme Padishah Emperor of the known universe, Greg White, is. It's just really fun to say, folks. Thanks so much for enjoying another Top 10. We really hope you enjoyed that. There's always new games to discover. We hope you discover some new ones in the new year for yourself. Big thanks to all of our channel sponsors here for the year of 2022 as we wrap things out. Lucky Duck Games, Board Game Geek, and of course, Restoration Games. Cheers, everybody. Also, the Supreme Padishah, the Emperor of the known universe, Greg White. We swear fealty to you always.